Down at a breakneck pace. And so we are beyond that. This is a really alarming new national poll conducted by Campaign Research. They did an online poll of a couple thousand Canadians and asked them questions around things that you would be willing to allow the government to do in the name of battling COVID-19, like the police entering homes without a warrant, whether or not you should jail or fine people for downplaying the seriousness of coronavirus, whether or not it's okay for the police to break up family members. And I got to tell you, Alex, I wasn't optimistic that this country would rally around civil liberties right now, but I didn't think the results would be as bad as they are.
No, and it breaks down into voter base, but only 29% of liberal voters strongly oppose cops entering your house with a warrant, which just is like, well, are you kidding me? That's scary. And then you look on the NDP and Conservative side, and the numbers are way different. They feel differently about that. But also in jailing or fining people for spreading, quote, disinformation about the virus. 71% of liberal voters support the law clamping down on those who question the existence of the seriousness of that. I mean, what?
It's totally bizarre, and it's more alarming. I mean, yes, liberal voters are a lot more likely to support these abuses of our civil liberties, but for most of these categories, a slim majority of Canadians across the board, age group, gender, area of the country, political affiliation, all sort of a slim majority actually support all of these things. So it's very problematic. I mean, jailing someone for making a claim such as COVID's just the flu, and that's the one example they give in this question when they poll people saying COVID's just the flu. Well, first of all, I've had a pediatric expert tell me in children it is actually not as serious as the flu, but, immaterial of that, even if they hadn't said that, I mean, if a person wants to go in young and Dundas Square and say, it's just the flu, like, okay, who cares? If the person is totally wrong, I don't understand why we need to throw them in prison, and yet 75% of liberal voters would like to do that. So it is odd.
Well, no, that's downright scary. That's a freedom of speech issue. I mean, I don't like anti-vaxxers, but if they want to spew their stuff, I just will turn the channel on it. I mean, I'm not about to say, let's throw them in jail. I don't have a lot of time for them, but you're criminalizing someone's opinion, whether you agree with it or not. But, getting back to your point that while liberal voters feel more strongly about it, the more disturbing of the trends that Campaign Research found out is that a lot of Canadians kind of shrug their shoulders at this. And we saw what happened in G20 when basic civil liberties were completely trampled upon. People cared then. I'm just shocked why they don't care now. And did we get a breakdown of the demographic of who is okay with this?
Well, in terms of around the country, the people who are more okay with it is Atlantic provinces are much more supportive of it, and people in Quebec. And then in Ontario, not so much. Manitoba is kind of 50-50, and then Alberta and Saskatchewan, they are against this, and BC is a little bit more in support of it. So generally kind of the more like, and those are the areas where there's liberal support. Quebec's not necessarily totally true on all of that, but places where there's liberal writings are more in support of these civil rights abuses. I'm not trying to make it a partisan issue, but that's just what the numbers show. So it's very odd on that front. But there's an ironic question here when they actually ask directly. In these other questions, they say, do you support this, that, or the other? And in one question, they say, do you support suspending civil liberties? 52% of respondents say no, and only 38% say yes, they do. And I'm like, guys, do you not realize the questions you just answered? So they don't even realize that they are actually saying, oh, I'm all in favor of civil liberties, but you can also jail someone for saying COVID's the flu. It's quite a disconnect.
Well, it's also like people who say, well, I'm okay with soft censorship. And I'm like, there's no such thing. You either have censorship or you do not. You either have civil liberties or you do not. And so I get the sense in some of the polling that we've seen of late about things like freedom of speech or civil liberties that people don't really understand what they're agreeing to, which is part of the problem. I think people have to either experience it, like the mother I just talked about, when her son's been taken off to some government camp, until you're in that and you realize, oh my God, I have no one standing up for me in what it appears as authoritarian, and then you don't really know what you're talking about.
No, you never really appreciate why overreaching government is a bad thing until it overreaches on you. I mean, the other thing that surprises me, Alex, these opinions are being held now in late January, beginning of February 2021, well well into the second wave, where we've had 10 months to learn about this virus, learn and grow and evolve our response. And also, we have a massive downward trend in cases. It's happening all around North America. There are jurisdictions that are not under lockdown that are also seeing this downward decline. And we have the vaccine being rolled out, albeit, poorly and slowly, and you've done a great job covering all of that. But I don't understand why these cultural people are just freaking out so much when actually the situation is also improving, and there's a lot of positives to acknowledge right now.
Careful, Anthony. You could get yourself in trouble with those of you.
Very true.
Nonetheless, thank you. Appreciate your time on this. Thanks. That's Anthony Furey, who writes about this in the Toronto Sun. But again, before you answer questions,